Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the New Fashion Conservatives podcast. I'm your host, Justin Phillips. With me, as always, is the man who keeps everything running while I'm hanging out on a tropical beach, Shadow Governor Voss.
Robin Voss's strongest soldier.
We have a jam-packed episode for you tonight, so let's start, as we always do, more candidates. And the one that comes as no surprise, eschewing all of the advice from Democratic elites, Jesse M. Barnes has announced his candidacy for governor. Shadow Voss, are we excited for this guy?
Well, whether it's Sarah Russell Rodriguez, Jesse Barnes, I like that we're using the official names.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse is his God-given name. Mandela is his I like black voters and I need to appeal to them name. So very excited. We've had this weeks-long campaign online, in the print media, this relentless campaign by the leftist establishment, if you will, trying to keep Jesse out of the governor's race. And to his credit, this patriot has not listened to them. He is a grassroots supported candidate who will not let the establishment dictate when he will not run. And he is proving the haters wrong, and I wish him the very best in his quest for the Democratic governor nominee, and only the nomination, not the actual government. But all jokes aside, this is great for Republicans. Best news that we've heard in the governor's race in a while, and I couldn't be more excited. Obviously, there's a lot of Democrats that are not so much.
Yeah.
Democrats are actually pretty disciplined on the whole "you lost once, you're kind of done" thing, at least when it comes for general elections, unless you're Rebecca Cook and you get 3 chances.
Yeah.
But that's slightly different. So they've been there's been a lot of people online that are like, hey, we've got our progressive candidate, and it's Francesca Hong.
Yeah. They certainly going to be dividing that voter base right now. And I think, like you said, we have a lot of candidates in the state. Once they've lost once, if they try to make that comeback, it doesn't work. You look at Russ Feingold from 2010 to 2016, especially most recently on the Democrat side. Tom Barrett was another one. He lost once for governor in 2010, comes back 2 years recall, and he actually ran prior to that. He lost in the primary when he was redistricted out of his race, or out of his congressional seat in Milwaukee. I want to say that was 2002. It would have been 2002 when he ran against Jim Doyle in that primary. So there's certainly that history on the side. We have that same on the Republican side. We've talked about it a lot here already. So what really I find interesting is his launch out of the gate hits on all of the same points that he tried to run on against Ron Johnson in 2022. My dad was a union worker. The first thing he talks about in his ad, his launch ad, is not any of his accomplishments, because he has none. It's his dad. I mean, that's kind of, and he did the meme, if you will. So he launches with that. He goes on up front, and he's immediately talking about Tom Tiffany. He's going to take on Tom Tiffany. Mandela already sees himself. Jesse sees himself as the front runner and doesn't need to dirty himself by talking about his Democrat opponents. And then today, when we're recording this, he just got endorsed by California's favorite son, Adam Schiff. So he is just stacking up all of these reasons not to win a general election.
Well, the thing with the Schiff endorsement that I think is, and this is a genuine question. And, to the few Democrats that probably listen, or maybe don't listen, whatever, where does Schiff lie? He's not establishment. He's extremely progressive, but he's kind of like he's a white guy. He's only got so much of a ceiling in the Democrat Party as far as progressive politics. So, what is Schiff? What is he? He's not establishment. He's progressive, but he can't. He's not in the Klan because he's not a person of color. Right. He doesn't have some other victimhood card. So he's capped out. So what is his influence? Does he have influence? I mean, obviously, Shifty Schiff, as Trump calls him, Yeah, I don't like the guy, but I'm not going to pretend to know like the dynamics of his endorsement. But he's a senator. Like, I don't know. I just don't think it. I don't know what what section of Democrat primary voters are like Adam Schiff. He's my guy, unless they just watch a crap ton of MSNBC. Sorry. I had to hold myself there. A crap ton of MSNBC, and they just see him all the time. Like, oh, well, if he likes him, I like. Which maybe that's the play.
And,
I don't know.
Maybe his strategy is like, if I get one of the progressives who was the big foil to Donald Trump, maybe that gets the progressives on my side and away from Francesca Hong. Maybe he gets that 0.5% that Brett Halsey's polling at right now, brings him over. But in doing so, I think Barnes lost a recent endorsement that was a bit surprising. So besides the fact that he's already seen, the Journal Sentinel, the Milwaukee Courier, the New York Times have come out with these pieces that are like, you shouldn't run. And the Courier, I think, was the most like, please, Mandela, don't. New York Times was kind of this like soft hit piece that was probably trying to bolster another candidate. Journal Sentinel just kind of piggybacked on that, because that's what the Journal Sentinel does, is just kind of rerun other people's content. But recently, Jesse Barnes did not get the endorsement of AFSCME's Local 32.
I know, yeah.
Which is the big spender in the gubernatorial primary last cycle. And they endorsed Sarah Russell Rodriguez.
Yeah, and I tweeted this earlier this week regarding the endorsements. Endorsements work different for the Democrat and the Republicans in many respects. And I think the biggest and most influential endorsements come from the unions. And they have money. They have usually big membership and usually Democrats. So you got a trinity of things to like about if you're a candidate and trying to get these union endorsements. So I think that's pretty impactful. And I saw Jesse got a progressive alderman in Milwaukee. And first of all, the Milwaukee politics of this primary are getting larger and larger. Because we have Jesse, of course, vying for that position. You have Crowley vying for that position. But then you got Sarah Rodriguez, who's like, the suburban outside, but maybe she can cut some of those like Wauwatosa voters.
It's exactly what she's trying to.
And then, of course, we have the new entry into the Democrat race, which I know we're still talking about Jesse, so we'll get to that in a second. But it just clouds. I mean, the Democrat triangulation has got to be fascinating. I would love, if we could not talk about any hot button issues, I'd be curious just to hear a Democrat's perspective on Southeast Wisconsin and the Milwaukee politics of this primary.
Yeah, because, Barnes has in the past kind of dabbled in those Milwaukee politics. He tried to challenge sitting senator at the time, Lena Taylor, and was soundly defeated. So he turns around and then becomes the lieutenant governor's candidate. Just 2 years later. Very interesting dynamic, something I have only tried to read about and don't know too much about.
We are not insiders for the Democrat Party, and for good reason. So we're not going to understand all that, although you can read some of the tea leaves in through these endorsements and who doesn't endorse or who is endorsing. So it's certainly it's going to be very, very interesting. And we referenced him earlier.
Yes.
But there's a new entry.
There is. And he's of the Milwaukee area, kind of. A loaf of chinless Wonder Bread, allegedly known as Joel Brennan, has entered the race. Now, Joel Brennan, best known, allegedly, for being Kevin Conroy's brother-in-law, who clearly bought him this very nice, very flashy entrance into the race, just like he bought Joel his spot in the Evers administration. So you see his campaign starts with, reminding voters that he was one of Evers's administration who shut down the economy, let your grandparents die alone, shut down schools, and forced your children at daycare to wear masks. Literally talks about how his leadership or his involvement in the Wisconsin's COVID-19 response as a good thing. Like, if you're going to get out there and shoot yourself in the foot, like, that's probably what the best way to do it is bring up how the state was shut down during COVID and how you were a big part of that.
And it's unfortunate that the COVID era missteps kind of been largely forgotten. And I'm one of those people that love to bring it up all the time, but voters have the attention. I mean, that was 5 years ago.
It was. Yeah.
Which is wild to think.
We're closer to 6 years ago.
Well, yeah, we're basically closer to the next decade than we are, you know, COVID when it first started.
I mean, the COVID-19 means 2019. Like, that's
yeah. So it's been eons in the political world. That being said, Joel Brennan, yes, a chinless wonder loaf of bread. I mean, his rollout video I thought was fine.
Yeah.
I thought it was largely forgettable, but I didn't think it was bad. But I'm so confused as what his lane is other than just Tony Evers. Like, here I'm a generic white guy who a job creator like the Missy Hughes lane, which I also posted online. Follow at Robin Voss Stan on Twitter. So I'm trying to figure out, I mean, does he have is he coming in with a lot of money? Does he think he can just kind of run people over? And he also drew, I think, some criticism, and I'm now remembering this on the fly, so I might be wrong. I'm pretty sure Francesca Hong also took a shot at him.
Kelda took a shot. Maybe
was that Kelda over the referendum?
Yes.
Okay, that was Kelda. All right. So,
because Kelda, we had predicted on the show earlier that Kelda was going to be the first to go negative or take that first shot. And so now that there's a pinhole in the wall of the Democrat Party that now could be opened up just a little bit, where they all can start taking shots at each other now.
Where the leak can come in. Although there is not a insignificant chance that Francesca Hong puts out online that she's in favor of abolishing ICE the day before Mandela says that he's right.
Yeah, we got to talk about that. We forgot. We should have brought that up sooner. So, 2022, Jesse Barnes holding a T-shirt that says "Abolish ICE." Widely criticized for it. One of the many things that he was criticized for during that campaign.
That's like page 22 in the Oppo book.
Which is, halfway through it, and the only half that the RNC needed to use against him, because there is so much. We talk about the fact that he supported cashless bail. He supports abolishing prisons, abolishing the police. He's on that.
Which is not the narrative he's singing right now.
No. In fact,
I'm a moderate.
Talk about that. Yeah.
It's not Republican versus Democrat. It's who can bring people together. I'm like, what?
Yeah, he seems to be trying to stake out both the progressive side and the Republican light messaging.
I mean, to be fair, the consultants on his race are probably like, you got a lot of baggage. You're going to have to pivot to the middle.
Right. He's going to have to rehab his image really quickly.
Yeah. And
because
so
it's
this
just
is
still
logical.
there. Right. It's still there.
He has to do that.
But we go from 2022, when abolishing ICE was considered a faux pas, probably too far to the extreme, even in Democrat circles, to now Francesca Hong bragging that she ordered that exact same T-shirt that Mandela Barnes, Jesse Barnes, was holding up.
Well, and again, politics has changed a lot since 2022. Abolishing ICE in 2022, when Donald Trump is not even the president, yes, it was damning. But of course, now it is the year 2025 of our Lord, and ICE is very aggressive with their tactics. And first of all, I completely endorse all of that. But a lot of people, when they see it up front and personal, they don't like it. And that's their prerogative. I would disagree that they're all kind of emotional and can be manipulated by imagery. Instead, I mean, the government, it's not supposed to look at things emotionally. They're supposed to execute the law. So if you break the law, you should be held accountable regardless of the emotional impact. But regardless, that's neither here nor there. So that actually might be more endearing to the Democrat base than it was. Obviously, the abolish ICE thing was a general. Jesse did not have to go through a primary.
This
in
is
2022,
true, right, because
Ben
they
Wickler
cleared the field.
For him, so he's going to actually have to fight in an actual primary, which again, Dan Shaver, who I love to mention, he said that he thinks the primary will go down to election day and there won't be a clearing of the field, which I agree. There's just too many candidates. You can only give so many constitutional offices away to primary candidates to get them to drop out.
Yep.
So I just don't think that's going to happen. But the abolish ICE, I think, will be endearing at this time where ICE, it does catch a lot of flack. And I think that might actually rally a lot of progressives to Francesca.
Right, to Francesca. Mandela. But then again, you're talking about splitting a progressive vote between Jesse and Francesca, the moderate, businessy side between Joel Brennan, Missy Hughes. You also have the crackpots in there like Brett Halsey, perhaps Kirk Bangstad. It's all over the map. And then again, you have the minority candidate in David Crowley. And don't hear what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's a affirmative action candidate. I'm saying he's a minority member of the Democrat Party who's probably going to court those votes.
Along with Jesse. But
yeah.
I think that we might, and I hope to God, I'm praying that we get this primary to continue as is.
Yes.
Although I'm sure there'll be a couple people that drop out maybe in the spring, late spring, once, nomination papers start really, becomes real.
Yeah.
People might be like, you're right, I don't have a path, and they'll drop out. Unfortunately, I would love for us to get to election day with all of these candidates and maybe even more, because I think the map would be fascinating and probably even close to the lieutenant governor race 2022 primary for the Republican side. Just a rainbow of colors all across the state. And I think it'd be really fascinating to see, who's winning Crawford County in the Democrat primary.
Yeah.
Is it Brett Halsey? I mean, it's not going to be Brett Halsey, but of the 200 voters that are up there, to Francesca's credit, she is courting those voters outstate. It's not just Madison people that are, that she's going to. I mean, I'm sure she's going to do a lot of Madison stuff. Don't get me wrong. She went to Sparta. She's going to those rural communities that have 3, 4, 5 progressives.
Right. And she's got to get them because, you talk about all these candidates, Mandela Barnes being from Milwaukee, Sarah Russell Rodriguez being from the Milwaukee area, David Crowley, Joel Brennan, kind of having a little bit of 1 foot in the Madison camp, 1 foot in the Milwaukee camp. The one we haven't talked about recently, the one who has been texting me nonstop, even though I don't respond to her, is Missy Hughes.
Oh,
she could court the rural vote because she is from the western half of the state. So I think Francesca's
so much of a non-factor, though.
She is.
Unless she is getting hundreds of thousands of dollars that I don't know about,
well, that's the thing. Besides, by April, it's not just nomination papers because, someone like Francesca is going to be staring down, do I want to give up my assembly seat to do this? Or do I want to just go back to that? I kind of made my point. She's, kind of driven the Democrat primary to a far enough left point that she can say, well, I got my point across. I have some, some assurances that Sarah or Crowley, one of those is going to do my agenda.
I think she's a true believer, though. I think she'll see this through.
Yeah.
I mean, I fully believe that she's going to stick this one out. I mean, she's been in the assembly for a while now. Maybe she just wants she could probably make enough noise and maybe still get a nice gig somewhere else, doing some other progressive politics for a PAC or some other, issue group, because there's a million of them for Democrats. I mean, she could even go outside Wisconsin and probably do that. So I think she'll see it through, and I hope she does, because she is going to drag everybody to the left with her. Still wish she would gain some more traction. I haven't seen anybody really, Mandela's got a lot of interviews, but even Mandela, it's a very soft support.
You land those interviews in the beginning. Everyone go on up front. You go on WTMJ because it's a left-wing station now with less listeners than what we have on our little pod here. You go on The Voice, which is that 670, I think, AM. You do maybe Madison Progressive Radio, if that's still a thing. I don't even know if it is anymore.
There is some.
But yeah, you get those, and then you gotta have to hit the trail and maybe beg the Journal Sentinel to run your press release. And even though they are faithful stenographers for the Democratic Party,
even they don't do that.
Exactly. So at some point, you're right. It's going to be real for a lot of these people. you're going to be looking at a campaign account with less than $100,000, or maybe less than, $250,000 in it, and be like, can I really, is this sustainable between, the day you turn in your nomination papers till August? Because at the end of the day, the best thing that the Republicans have going from them, and we kind of talked off air about the fact that the headwinds don't look promising for the GOP next cycle, and it never does. It's very rare that the party of the president gains or holds seats. It's rare. I think it happened in 2002 for the Republicans, and I think it happened. War. Yeah.
And in 2022.
2002, excuse me. In 2002. Yeah. In 2022 was not as big of a wave year as was anticipated. So we can break that down another time. But the best thing that the GOP in the state has going for it is the fact that this is so big. There isn't a real chance that we think any of these people are going to drop out, which means they have a sprint between August and November to convince not just the moderate, independent, and maybe center-right electorate that still feels squishy about Donald Trump. They have to convince the progressives or the business moderates, all those people. They have to get all those people back singing from the same hymnal going into the election day. And with Republicans right now, with Josh Schoemann versus Tom Tiffany, which is right now a very cordial primary, have a ton of respect for both those guys, that they are sticking to, Josh Schoemann, we'll talk about it a little later, just put out another policy plan. Tom Tiffany's doing a lot of campaigning, getting a lot of great news. Like, they're doing it the right way. The Democrats, and we'll talk about this right now, is the fact that Kelda, again, who's allegedly still running, I think she's trying to do the George Santos thing where she's going to run a losing campaign and get money out of it.
She's been pay off her back. Yeah. So disappointing.
But the first thing she did take a shot at Joel Brennan in his launch. So Jesse Apoyan had this tweet, quoted Kelda Roy saying, "At this moment, Wisconsin needs a leader who knows how to deliver higher wages, lower costs, and the freedom to thrive. While I look forward to a spirited primary, I will not be able to overlook the fact that only one of the candidates in this race tried to defeat a desperately needed referendum to fund our biggest school district." So she's already kind of message testing against Joel Brennan, who won against the Milwaukee MPS referendum that gave it an extra $500 million.
Which is crazy to think that Joel Brennan siding against the referendum and on the side of taxpayers is considered a dig. In a Democrat primary. It kind of shows you where the Democrat Party is at, where trying not to jack up property taxes in the city of Milwaukee where they're already jacked up. Sure. If Kelda Roy wants to run on property tax increases like that, sure.
She's going to run on both lower costs and higher priority. Yeah.
Higher property taxes.
That is Democrat jujitsu.
Also, what benefit does it do her to attack Joel Brennan? Like, if I'm being completely honest, I don't know what the lane for Joel Brennan is. I don't think he's going to have that much of an impact. If Missy Hughes is going to get 1.5% in the primary, I think Joel's going to get 4 or 5.
Right. And if you're,
that's maybe being generous.
If you're Jesse Barnes or Sarah Russell Rodriguez right now, that's like you're looking at the Green Bay Packers and Chicago Bears trying to take out, watching the New Orleans Saints and Minnesota Vikings go toe to toe in a game. Like you're watching, the lower ranked opponents just kind of beating the crap out of each other for no good reason.
Charles Franklin, please poll this primary again. We really need. I mean, it's so incredibly hard to see how strong is Mandela's support. I have a feeling he's probably sub 30. I think he's between 27 and 29% or 30% maybe. For if we're being honest, and I think everyone else is probably in single digits, but being at high 20s, low 30s is not.
That's all soft.
That's all very soft.
We talked about it before. It's recency bias because he was on the ballot, and now it's going to be recency bias because they saw his name in the news.
And nothing's really going to happen. I really don't think anything's going to happen until someone, we get the filing reports and we see how much money people have and people start dropping, and donors start consolidating. 2, they start sniping at each other.
Yep.
Which I think is.
And I want more of that.
And I want more of that. Or Ben Wickler comes back from whatever consulting job he inevitably took and said, and then tells people to start dropping out, which would be hilarious. Although I don't know what that dynamic would be with the IPA salesman that is the DPW chairman.
Yeah.
So I just don't. I mean, I'm sure he raises a lot of money, which that's great. But is he Ben Wickler? I mean, I respect Ben Wickler as an opponent because he was really good at his job, and Devin basically has everything laid out for him. He just has to execute. We'll see if he can do it.
Right. And he doesn't seem like he's in a position to make kingmaker.
I mean, I don't know what first-time chairman would. I mean, you kind of have to prove yourself, even if you are Ben Wickler's selected candidate. But I just think it's interesting, and that's another Democrat dynamic that I don't know. Would love to pick a Democrat's brain about that at some point. But
all right, so Shadow Gov, you put this out a couple days ago. Do you have any changes? And let's walk through your Democrat Gov primary power rankings right now.
Yeah, I love power rankings. I love college football power rankings. I love NFL power rankings because they change from week to week based off of the performance on the field. I shouldn't say a 4-6, like a 6-6 college football team that just made it into the playoffs, but started the season 0-6 and ended 6-6. Maybe they're like in the 5th or 6th. They're not like top of the crop, but they're certainly better than maybe some 9-3 teams that had a 3-game skid. At the end of the season
from the MAC conference.
Yeah. So I just love power rankings overall, and I should do them more. And whenever I think about it, I just forget. But Mandela Barnes, for obvious reasons that we don't need to rehash. First on that rankings. Second, Sarah Rodriguez, just because the polling has suggested that she's polled decently well, and she got in super early, so she's gotten some extra time. 3, Francesca Hong, just because of her kind of sniping a little bit at Mandela Barnes, as well as she has a lot of grassroots support, especially online, which I know Twitter is not real life. However, I think the 2024 election somewhat proved that online might not be everything, but it is certainly not an insignificant portion, especially if they're all primary voters. Dan Schaefer did his unofficial poll on primary candidates, and he listed 3. I think it was Mandela, Sarah, and David Crowley, and then other, and 45% said other, and most of them were for Francesca. David Crowley is 4.
Okay.
Disappointing. Again, I think he's one of the biggest disappointments in this primary because I think he has a lot of potential as a candidate, but he's just talking about all the wrong issues. Don't hear anything from him. But I think he does have upside. 5, Joel Brennan, who at the time when I tweeted this was not announced. He's kind of the wild card for me, just because I think he's got connections. He's got one.
Kevin Conroy of Exact Sciences, his brother-in-law.
Yes,
and Exact Sciences just sold to Abbott Labs, I believe, for several $1 billion.
But the point being is that's more connections than the rest of the people on the list have.
Okay.
I think that just kind of immediately puts you in contention of, okay, you have access to some money.
You get mid-tier.
Yeah. And so 5 is not because I think he's better than the others on the list. It's just where
he's got more potential.
I think he's got the same ceiling as Missy Hughes, but he's got a higher floor.
Okay.
So that's the way to put it. Kelda Royce, another huge disappointment.
100% with you there.
Gosh, I mean, radio silent, only raised $75K in the initial.
I expected her to come out swinging at everyone.
I think I did too, but I think everyone's trying to play for the general because they think
they're the best candidate for the general.
I guess. I don't know. I don't know what the strategy is, but my New Year's resolution is that Democrats start sniping at each other. So Kelda, an extreme disappointment. Maybe she'll bring another breastfeeding ad out or something, and that'll win primary voters for or something. Kirk Baxton, not announced, of course. But good Lord, I hope he does. Just for the sake that he's like a rabid progressive makes him so he's not last on those lists because he's got so many problems. He's the worst candidate by far, bar none. But because he's a rabid progressive and he makes this niche beer, he has a cult following. Yes. So it's just like he can't be last. I want to reform my power rankings because I put Brett Halsey.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I put Brett Halsey there is because I forgot Missy Hughes. Brett Halsey should be last just because he is a relic of the past. He's irrelevant. He's actually insane as much as Kirk Baxton.
Yes. But he doesn't make beer.
But he doesn't make beer. And he just doesn't put out billboards of why Republicans suck. So Brett Halsey should be last at 9. But the fact that I forgot Missy Hughes off the list means that you're last. Like if I forgot you were even running, you're last in the power rankings. So that's 1 through 9.
Okay.
So
we'll see.
We'll do some updates maybe.
For me, I don't forget about Missy because she texts me, like I said, every day, which means one of two things. So in my early days in campaign politics, I was a tracker. I followed Tom Barrett around with a video camera. I can tell you some of my favorite stories from that at some point. But it meant I signed up for a bunch of left-wing Democrat lists. So I could always maybe find out if Tom Barrett's going to be somewhere. Once I followed him to an Ask Me Hall and nearly got my ass kicked. But I'm still on a couple of those lists. Like the bad lists, if you buy them, I'm still on them.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's years ago.
Yeah. I was still getting things from Kiss and Cal Cunningham out of the Carolinas just this past cycle from a 2010 list I signed up for. Gosh. Or it means Missy or someone as a prank signed me up for her text alerts. Maybe if Missy wants to talk, she wants to come on the show, she can. She doesn't have to text me every day. For $50 to do it.
I love that thought, but I really think it's just bad.
You think it's just I mean, that's the 90% of it.
Yeah.
The 90% chance
it is funny to make me think that someone that you live rent free in someone's brain that they did do that. That would be really funny.
Well,
you never know.
We'll see. But with that, we can't end our talk about candidates without unfortunately talking about one on the conservative side. Mark Belling recently, and we've talked about this a little in the past, in his recent column in the Freeman newspapers, and I think Washington County Daily News, it was in Oconomowoc Enterprise, all those ones, he hinted that Tim Michels is kicking the tires on another statewide campaign for governor.
Yeah. And first disclose the first thing before going into it. No hard feelings. I'm turning a new leaf.
Okay.
No hard feelings. That was years ago.
2026 Shadow Gov is
no grudges. Grudges just stress you out. And I might disagree with the strategy, how everything went. I certainly have gripes, and I made those very public at the time. But I'm not holding any grudges. That being said, Tim should not run.
100%.
Okay. That doesn't mean two things can be true at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be relentlessly, rhetoric wise attacking the guy, but he shouldn't run. If the stories are true, when he originally went to DC and all of that hoopla was around about him running, and he, according to sources, said, I don't know, why are people talking about me for governor? I was just in DC for business. If that's true, if you didn't think about running for governor, but now you've been manufactured into thinking that Mandela Barnes is now in the race and now you can win it. We cannot we cannot have this I'm just going to jump in the race all of a sudden. It's not genuine. It's not I'm not saying that we need to elect people that have been thinking about running for governor for 20 years. I'm not saying that. But if you just think, I'll run for governor on a whim, that just doesn't breed confidence at all. And I would kindly ask Tim Michels, just continue to make your money with your business. If you want to continue to support conservative causes, God bless you.
Don't run.
Just don't run, though.
Do not do it.
We've done it. You've done it before.
Twice.
So I just want to, I think other people deserve a shot.
I think there are already two better candidates in the race.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've seen everything there is to see out of Tim Michels. And that's no disrespect to him.
I wanted Tim to win just as badly as any Republican last cycle. He didn't. He won, again, he lost a very winnable race. He didn't live up to expectations. He didn't live up to his financial expectations. He spent more money trying to defeat Rebecca Clayfish than he did trying to defeat Tony Evers. I think everyone should be disappointed by that.
Mm-hmm.
He likes being a candidate. He likes hearing his name in the press. He doesn't want to do the job of governor. He didn't want to do the job of senator. He just wants to be the candidate. We can't afford that again.
Mm-hmm.
The headwinds again against the GOP are too strong.
Well, and on top of that, 2022, we had Michael's race, and we heard the Connecticut Tim stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of the merits of the story, that's what they ran with. 2024, Hovde ran, of course. We heard about
California.
Mm-hmm. And I think that those claims were less valid than Tim Michael's, but attack ads still work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't want to go through a third cycle of the out of state. Like,
right.
Guys, it hasn't worked.
Right.
And unless, I mean, what is Tim Michael's going to sell his house in Connecticut? No. And even if he does, they're still going to say he lived in Connecticut.
Yep.
Just make it past tense.
Mm-hmm.
They're still good. When he ran for governor last, he was still living in Connecticut. They can imply, they can do all kinds of stuff. And it's unfortunate that there are, things that, the Democrats will, slightly twist to make it seem more real than it actually is. But I'm trying to live in reality here. And if Wisconsinites see another outside Wisconsin story, like, they're going to lose their mind. Okay. I think both of the candidates we have are more electable than Tim Michael's at this point.
Absolutely.
And that's including money and everything too.
And we've had a chance to interview both of them. I think they're both fantastic. I like them both. They're both lifelong or near lifelong Wisconsin residents. If you want to go back and check out those episodes, they are right in our thing. Just, Tom Tiffany, Josh Schoemann had those interviews.
And I don't even disagree with Tim having a home in.
Look, he's made a lot of money. Buy homes where you want to go buy homes. That's fine. But
if you're trying to run for governor in Wisconsin, you're living in Wisconsin 6 months and 1 day, you shouldn't be surprised that this happens. Okay. So again, no disrespect, but just, we're not running for governor off of whims.
Please don't.
And if all this is true, again, that he was in DC for business and didn't actually plan on running for governor, then someone planted that story. Someone said, oh, Tim Michaels is in DC meeting with Trump. Someone wants him to run. I want to know who it is, and cut it out.
Exactly. But as we just talked about, we had two great candidates that we've been both had a chance to interview. One of them, Josh Schoemann, recently launched another policy plan that I think is worth mentioning here. Just did it, I think, as we're recording this, it came out today. He has a plan to shrink Madison. And you can read the whole plan on his website, of course. But the Shrink Madison plan Josh wants to invest in regional hubs so agencies are closer to the people they serve and shouldn't ensure that taxpayers' hard-earned dollars are spent across the state. Something that's been talked about by, Wisconsin Republicans for a while is the fact that, why is the DNR not all up in the Northwoods? I know some of it was moved in a budget during the Walker administration. Some of the forestry divisions actually near the forests now, but do we really need all of the DNR located, a couple blocks from the state capitol? Do we really need Department of Children and Families, which traditionally serves our larger cities like Milwaukee, Racine, Kenosha? Shouldn't that be closer to the people that they serve? And so he introduced this thing saying, the whole state shouldn't exist to serve the seat of state government. The government should serve the people. His plan is to decentralize key state government agencies, sell state office buildings in Madison, and require state employees to return to work. So he did list some places where he thinks that agencies should go. And there's logic to it. They didn't just throw a dart at the map of Wisconsin. They have a plan. They want Department of Natural Resources to be in Wausau and should be in the Northwoods, should be closer to the conservation, the great North Woods that we have, and the lakes and forests. Wisconsin Dells or Rhinelander should be tourism. Again, makes sense. Wisconsin Dells is like our little regional hub of tourist activity. Rhinelander, also a great place. La Crosse for the Department of Veterans Affairs. Green Bay, Department of Financial Institutions. I know that is because there's a couple of very large state banks up there, as well as some credit unions. The Kenosha-Racine area should be the Department of Workforce Development, Department of Children and Families. Again, that makes sense. I think their goal there, even though it would serve Milwaukee, is it would have a larger economic impact to put those jobs and those state agencies
in a growing community.
Exactly.
Milwaukee kind of already has everything.
Exactly. And Stevens Point should be Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection. And as someone who worked in the administration, and I had these conversations with my bosses at that time, there should be like one state office building for an office for the secretary and deputy secretaries, a couple of them, but they should, of course, be out in there across the state. Should have a couple policy people, a comms person, and the legislative liaison, because they need, to be close to the Capitol. But everyone else could work from any of these offices.
And plus, most of the time, I'm assuming, virtual is since COVID, virtual has been used heavily. And that's not me saying that people should all be virtual. Like, to be a fiscal conservative, we should sell all state government department buildings and everyone just goes virtual. Not saying that.
No.
But I think you can use it, appropriately in a way that actually allows people from across the state to work for state government. And so that's not just centralized around Madison, because I agree. I don't think we need every single state government worker for departments in Madison, and they're not all in Madison either. But just to diversify a little bit, they talked about doing this in DC, with the federal government and trying to move DC out of DC essentially. And is it convenient for people? Yes, it is 100% convenient. But you also get a lot of groupthink, from one side or the other. Now, I think that's a problem in Wisconsin? I think state government is a hell of a lot better than the federal government as far as impartiality. However, there is still plenty of partisanship and maybe just a slight more diversity of thought from the bubble that is Madison would be a good thing.
Someone, having worked at WEDC, I can speak to both those points, is that there was, a portion was in Milwaukee, because that is, again, our economic driver. We did have people across the state, which is what WEDC needs. And I think every state agency needs is to have, some people across the state targeting certain, regions. But you don't need them all right in Madison. And I, can think of a lot of great people I worked with there who were liberal, but they weren't super progressive, but when your hiring base is Madison, is Dane County,
you're going to get a lot of progressives.
You're going to get a lot of progressives. They're going to look at
just by the odds.
Exactly. And then they're going to drag their feet when it comes to implementing Republican laws and Republican reform. So get them out, get it more working for the people. I think that's a smart move. I like that, Josh Schoemann's come out with this plan. I think it's a very smart idea. And of course, there's a very expensive real estate right now around the Capitol. And do we need a 1970s looking, brutalist, bureaucratic building right next to the state capitol for Jeff 1 or 2 or 3 or how many Jeffs there government was that is it's an acronym, of course.
One of my most communist positions is, well, I don't even know if it's communist, but that like mandating the architecture style of buildings. Like, for example, what is it? Germantown, they have
Delafield does it. Yeah.
Delafield does it, but I think
Germantown does
it too.
Yeah, they do have a kind of a standard.
Yes. So like the subway, it has to look a certain way. Madison should do that, but for basically all buildings, and especially government buildings. Now, as the fiscal conservatives would say, that's not very, prudent of state taxpayer dollars. And you might be correct, because to rebuild the Capitol today, I'm sure would be incredibly expensive with how valuable the architecture is. And I'm not asking for every government building to look like that.
No.
But if it looks like 1970s Soviet, bloc brutalist,
which is what a lot of it does.
It's it's all ugly and gross and disgusting. It's like, when you look at it like at enough concrete blocks, you kind of be like, oh, it's all devoid of just any kind of art. And this might maybe my most liberal position. I just think it all is gross, and I think we should all knock it down, and everything should be a little bit nicer. And if this would be a result of that, sure. If to have nice government buildings, I'm not saying we should have gaudy. I don't think we need Buckingham Palace.
You could also rent in some of those very nice buildings, like WEDC was in the Water Council building. I know WEDA was in a building in the 3rd Ward. Like, you don't need to own the building. You can rent space in some of those buildings, and then you can get rid of. I know both Walker and I think Evers actually have tried to get rid of the downtown Wisconsin building that they have. Like, there's a state office building in downtown.
I'm pretty sure Evers is trying to sell that right now.
Yeah, they're trying to
because they're downsizing it
right, and because it's ugly. It was built in the 60s. It could only hold at like 80% capacity because 20% of it was like completely unusable because it's probably falling apart with asbestos. So yeah, we don't need that. Sell those buildings, get that cash in infusion to better help communities in other areas. Spread that out, spread the bureaucracy out, make it feel like you're more working for the people. So hat tip to Josh Schoemann for doing that.
And just a general upgrade. And not necessarily an upgrade like, oh, we're getting like a Maserati and we've been dealing with like a old beater Buick LeSabre or something, but just having, modernizing, I think, the government for the 21st century, whether that's reducing the footprint, taking those buildings out of Madison, doing hybrid with virtual. I can never do full virtual though, personally. I could never do that. Well, and you need people in there because I've seen those videos on Instagram where they hire the private investigators to literally watch employees to see if what they do on their virtual days, and they're like,
I know
mowing
people
their grass during the meeting.
Yeah, people are water. They'll find the easiest path, the path of least resistance, and so a lot of them will, it's like the movie Office Space. In any given week, some bureaucrats are probably doing 15 minutes of real work, and then they just kind of zone out for the other 39 and a half hours of a day or of a work week. So. So we do need to talk though about Governor Evers, who did drop a bunch of vetoes on some bills that I didn't think would necessarily be vetoed. Some of them I think were obvious that the governor was going to veto, but he last week vetoed 9 bills, including a block on illegal badger care enrollment. So I'm pulling some of this from the Center Square, but there was a handful of bills out that he vetoed. Again, including one about so of course he puts illegal immigrants over actual Wisconsinites. He's still kind of pushing this argument that illegals don't get benefits, which has been proven to be completely false. So he's like, well, we don't need to have this bill because they don't do it anyways. But reality is, you look at California, you look at Minnesota with their Somali issue. You look at, which just came out of the state of New York, that over like 54% of their CDL licenses are going to illegal immigrants or people who can't qualify. Like, it's bad. And he's trying to just brush that aside with this veto.
And then of course, with that veto though, this would prevent future administrations from doing something just because, the whole notion like, oh, it's not happening right now in Wisconsin. Like, do I think that Evers is shoveling hundreds of thousands or millions of illegals like driver's licenses or anything? No, but there could be an opportunity for fraud in agencies that you just happen to look away from. I don't think because of Wisconsin's nature of being a purple state, I don't think they can do what like New York and California do, or Illinois. I don't think they can do that because honestly, scandals like that ruin political careers. Yeah,
I mean, look at Tim Walz. He should. I mean, any decent
other state that it's not Minnesota, I think Tim Walz probably loses to a decent candidate or at least close. But because it's Minnesota, I think Tim Walz probably wins again. And then
we'll have to put a marker on that one.
Mike Lindell is running.
That's okay. Yeah. Yes, we can talk about that at some point in the future.
If he wins the primary,
yes.
I mean,
it's
even on a bad year, I think Tim Walz still wins by like 5.
Yeah. So
that's a whole nother thing.
Yes, it is.
That's a whole nother thing. But a scandal like that in Wisconsin would doom an administration. So at least I would hope so.
Yeah.
But
So other bills that he vetoed this time included a bill that would provide college cost and income outcome transparency. This isn't really that surprising.
No,
because Evers cares way more about keeping UW bureaucrats employed and wants universities to scam students with useless college degrees.
Well, he also needs to pay back, he's still paying back his dues for signing the largest school choice increase in Wisconsin history. Although this is colleges and not public schools, but he's still paying off the quote unquote education committee at large.
And the fact is, let's be honest, those kids that are getting those useless degrees are going to become barista socialists and reliable Democrat voters anyways, as opposed to, functioning adults. And
unless you're in STEM, I would love to see how many people actually get a job in their career field. So
the other ones he did veto include a bill that would make about service animals. I don't know if you saw that one. That makes sense because I'm pretty sure Maggie Gao and Britt Cuddebeck's emotional support cats have a say in this one. I'm sure the dozens of them that they have mean
this
that
is such a weird one.
People
are allowed to essentially put on fake vests that say it's a service animal so they can bring it anywhere
and rent apartments that otherwise ban. So my emotional support peacock.
I would have loved to see what situation arose to make for that was the reason for the bill. I doubt that there is a legislator sitting around saying, this is a pressing issue. I need to do this. I'm sure this is a local issue that someone brought forward and then pitched to their legislator. But I guess Evers has strong opinions on it. So
another bill he vetoed, I don't know if you saw this, was he vetoed military recruiting access to schools.
Yeah, this one was funny.
Well, that's what's funny to me is, he's a boomer. As someone, Alzheimer's erases recent memories first. So he probably thinks that he's living in the 1970s and the military
drafting people.
Right. The military recruiters are coming to send his classmates to Nam is probably what he thinks out of that one.
Well, his classmates. I don't think Evers was a classmate in the 70s. He was probably a teacher in the 70s.
Oh, that's a good point. He's sending his students. They're sending his students to Nam. That's probably what he's thinking. And that's why Maggie says, Governor, you need to veto this one.
It was just kind of not military recruiters, they can go and recruit kids. It's okay.
Yeah. And it's actually it's not even that. It was just they could drop off materials that have been requested by students.
Just kind of a bizarre thing, but I know Representative Clancy hated this bill.
Well, I mean,
for obvious reasons.
He hates the military.
Clancy went to Iraq
to fight
for
ISIS?
No, to protest the United States government.
Okay, well, sure. I mean, close enough.
Yeah, but I mean, not that I agree with the whole George Bush forever wars in the Middle East or anything, but that's how dedicated he was to that. But that's an aside. Other bills that have been vetoed.
So the one that really stands out to me, and I wanted to talk about this one last. Something we've kind of been focusing on a little bit because friend of the show, Ethan Sanchez, has been working this one pretty hard with Representative Nate Gustafson about allowing cigar bars. And the fact is, Wisconsin already allows cigar bars. What this does is kind of revamps the old smoking ban. It says, if you want to open a cigar bar now, you kind of can. And there are some issues that were raised by the governor's office as about people might be exposed to secondhand smoke. So now you sign a waiver that says,
oh, darn.
I understand the risks that are coming from this.
People go into cigar bars to smoke?
And people also might walk into those bars and not realize they're cigar bars. So, of course, there was an amendment that said, we'll put a sign up that says, this is a cigar bar.
Sorry. If you don't know that cigar bars have smoke, or you can't smell that it's a cigar bar before you get into the cigar bar, you probably should be able to vote. I'm sorry.
You have long COVID and you've lost all your sense of smell and sight.
You should just lose your right to vote. If you cannot, if you have an IQ that low, probably should just pack it up.
But I just want to read from
the veto message.
From Nate Gustafson's comments on his statement about the veto, because it's incredible. So Governor
the passion for cigar bars.
So Governor Evers' veto of AB 211, which is the cigar bill, is a gutless betrayal of Wisconsin small businesses and every adult who expects basic honesty from their government. This bill, introduced by a cancer survivor, was airtight. It created a narrow, heavily regulated exemption to keep statewide smoking ban fully intact while allowing a tiny number of adult-only tobacco bars to operate under some of the strictest conditions in the country. Evers knew that. He claimed to have read the bill. I doubt that. His staff might have briefed him. I'd like to assume that he understood exactly what AB 211 did. He didn't. And more importantly, what it didn't do. But instead of acknowledging the truth, he hid behind manufactured fear and hollow talking points to justify a political hit job on entrepreneurs who have done nothing but play by the rules. As a cancer survivor, I know this veto wasn't about health, safety, or policy. It was about appeasing the same special interest groups he's terrified to disagree with. It was about optics, not substance. It was about governor who would rather parrot advocacy group slogans than defend Wisconsin jobs. By killing AB 211, Governor Evers proved that his support for small businesses, quote unquote, is nothing more than slogan he dusts off for press conferences. Side note, we know that's true because he shut down small businesses during the pandemic at,
of course,
the behest of, Walmart and Amazon and Target. When he had the chance to take a stand for economic freedom, a simple, reasonable adult choice policy, he folded instantly. No courage, no leadership, just another veto designed to score points with the people who already write his talking points for him. So it goes on to say the message from Governor's Mansion couldn't be clear. Evers doesn't trust adults, doesn't trust entrepreneurs, doesn't trust Wisconsin to think for itself. He chose political obedience over truth, fairness, and over people who claims to serve. Wisconsin deserved better than this cowardly, cynical veto, and the governor should be ashamed of it. That's brilliant.
There's a lot to be said in there.
Right. And what I want to highlight is how rare, in my experience, that this kind of message comes out. Now, I know I have seen, and to my memory, I know Senator Wongard has had a couple bills vetoed. He's come out on X, posted why it's bad. I get that. Goes through why, again, some of this very similar kind of statements. Here's what actually Bill does. Here's what the governor is saying. Here's why he's wrong. But to just straight out attack the governor is just fantastic. That shows that Nate has some brass ones. He's willing to stand up for what he believes. There's a lot of legislators who will say, oh, the governor vetoed my bill. Shucks. Maybe we'll get it next session. Maybe we'll try again. And oh, well, that's too bad. They don't do what Representative Gustafson just did. It's very rare and needs to be acknowledged.
Should be done more often.
And I guess absolutely should be done more often. And of course, again, the governor's completely hypocritical with this veto. He's in every one of his budgets has put forth, marijuana legalization. So he's cool with people
marijuana just smoking on a street corner.
Yeah, he's cool with people smoking pot.
Not that people
on a street
don't do
corner.
that already in Madison and Milwaukee, but
you can't go into this cigar bar.
Highly regulated.
Right.
I thought Democrats liked regulation.
Right. And I thought they were the party of, my body, my choice. My choice is to smoke a cigar. I should be able to do so.
Did I tweet that this week? I'm pretty sure I did.
Did I?
I might have done the my body, my choice.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but
so just again, a lot of vetoes that came out of the governor's office that were kind of head scratchers. Of course, some that we knew were coming because the governor is, lazy and, relies on staff. And again, like Nate said, relies on special interest talking points to pull his little puppet strings or, pull the string in Tony Evers' back so he can parrot out those talking points and he can go back to eating pudding and playing pickleball and taking his, 4 p.m. nap.
This might be unpopular, but maybe when I was younger, I was like, oh yeah, the smoking ban makes sense. But part of me is I think the smoking ban should be by establishment. I think most people would ban it individually, but if a bar wants to have a smoking area or even smoking just in general, sure. I'd have no problem with that. Yeah. This podcast is sponsored by Marlboro. No, I'm kidding.
And CAO cigars and,
Yeah, no.
And if someone wants to get us a tin of Zin, I wouldn't say no.
I mean, if I'm having, a rum on the rocks, you have one, you have two, maybe you have three, cigarette maybe sounds pretty decent right now. Not that I smoke, but I really don't have the older I've gotten, I'm if a bar wants to have smoking inside, if I don't want to smell it, I just won't go in.
The true irony of this of the smoking ban though and the cigar bars is I used to go to Nice Ash. They used to have a couple fun things. They used to have maybe still do. I don't smoke cigars like I used to. Used to have poker night. They used to have garage band or rock band karaoke. So you played the video game with it.
Oh yeah.
One of the bartenders there was a cigarette smoker. he would have to go outside to smoke his cigs while we were all smoking our cigars inside. Just a very, ironic thing.
That's a little.
So,
although cigar smoke definitely smells different than cigarette smoke.
Yeah,
I
and
can understand.
We'll have to, maybe in the near future have Nate and Ethan on to, have a cigar pod full ride along by those guys. Celebrate freedom of the choice to smoke a cigar.
The only thing I would hesitate about that is that the microphones might smell like cigar smoke for like months on end. But if we could remedy that somehow, I suppose maybe just don't blow the smoke directly into the microphone. I just know it holds a lot of smoke, especially these pop filters. But
all right,
on a different note.
Yes. All right. So shifting topics completely. Shadow Gov, you got something for us.
So I have an ASMR. Now just bear with me. I have an ASMR thing I want you to imagine, okay? Mm-hmm. Well, wait, you don't really imagine ASMR, you just hear it in this podcast. So okay, I want to imagine that I want you to imagine that you're at a courthouse, okay? You're at a courthouse. You walk into the courtroom, okay? There's some double doors in front of you. You walk in. The judge's little throne thingy is right in front of you. You walk past the chairs on each side, and you go through the little saloon gate little thing to go where the defendant and the plaintiff are at. Okay. Now imagine that courtroom, and you turn around back to the double doors. But before you look all the way back to the double doors, there's a door off to the side. Okay. Now you go through that door that's on the side, and it's kind of by the jury box, and and there's I think there's an exit sign above it, so it's kind of saying, oh, this is kind of a side way to get out. You go through that side door, I should say. You turn right, and there's a long hallway. It's probably like 40 or 50 feet, maybe a little bit shorter, maybe like 30, 40 feet. And it's a long hallway, not open to the public, and you walk down that hallway. Okay. But before you get to the door, about 10 or 15 feet before, there's a stairway off to your left. You don't go through that. You don't go down the stairs. Instead, you go through the door right in front of you, and it leads to the public hallway. Okay. This is the crux of the entire Dugan story. It literally, Hannah Dugan, her case rests on that entire ASMR thing I just gave you, which is fascinating. The Journal-Sentinel did a flagrant piece of journalism by actually doing a 3D representation of the courtroom and kind of this nice little pass-through of what is the crux of the story, which is, did Hannah Dugan assist an illegal in avoiding the immigration enforcement officers? I am fully on the train now. I'm extremely biased, but I think an objective look at the facts would say she is guilty, but I think she's going to be I think they're going to do not guilty, or it'll be a hung jury or something.
So the trial is going to be starting in the next couple of weeks. Yes. A week or so, I think.
Well, by the time people are listening to this,
it may have already.
It's going to, I think, going to be start tomorrow. So that being said, there is evidence I think there's testimony that will say that Hannah Dugan said to the lawyer and the illegal to take the stairs. Okay. Well, in the courtroom, there's a side door, which is what I had you imagine. And there's the hallway that is not open to the public, but that hallway leads to two places: stairs that go downstairs, believe it or not, and then a door that leads to the public hallway where the ICE officers were at. What happened was that Hannah Dugan told them to leave, showed them the door. They went through the hallway to the public hallway where the ICE officers saw them, followed them into the elevator and down to the bottom floor, which is when the guy ran and they, captured him. What I believe Dugan's intent was for him to go in the side door, go down the stairs, which I believe witness testimony will say those stairs lead to a different floor, which then go to a public hallway, which then they can get to the exit. I'm assuming she wanted them to use the public that private stairwell to avoid the floor, to get to a different floor, to avoid the officers, to then totally circumvent the ICE officers so they can get away. Unfortunately, the lawyer did not listen to the instructions, and the illegal probably didn't know the instructions because he doesn't know English. Okay. So, and maybe the lawyer is too. I don't know. So basically, the lawyer's inability to follow directions properly may have saved Hannah Dugan's career, because that's kind of the crux. What was the intent? And if the intent was just to go to a public hallway, I think you have a hard case to prove that it was malicious. But if you can prove that she meant for them to go down the stairs and they just didn't do it, well, I think she's dead to rights. And I think that's the entire crux of the story. Minus the fact that jury selection has decided that there are 9 men and 5 women. And on top of that, there was a woman that they were questioning that said, yeah, I think she's guilty. I think they're going to strike her I think they struck her from the jury pool.
Yeah.
Although Lynn Edelman, now this is audio recording, WISN 12 did a great blow-by-blow of jury instruction, or as much as they could. And they said that there was a man who said he generally supports, this is a quote, generally supports the federal immigration enforcement and is aware of the case, but he says that he can compartmentalize that and look at things objectively. The defense wanted him barred, but Lynn Edelman says he stays.
All right.
So that guy will be on the jury.
I saw again this cover story by the Journal Sentinel. And I beat cover as in providing little Edelman cover for being as progressive and far left radical as he is, saying, well, he's actually not that far left. Of course he is. I think, my expectation was so low. The fact that we have her going to trial seems like a victory in itself.
Well, I think if it didn't go to trial, a lot of people would have questions. And this is kind of his way of saying, well, we're being objective, and maybe, and kudos to him, I guess, for at least letting it go to trial. Now, who knows what will actually happen during the trial? Will he allow certain evidence to be presented? Will he strike certain evidence? I mean, there's a lot of things that the judge obviously judges that can determine what the jury actually hears. So, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I watched a hell of a lot of the Rittenhouse trial. So, and that was fascinating. And that was, of course, all video recorded, which we won't have that for this federal trial. We'll just have to have court reporters somehow sketch Dugan's jawline, which I'm sure won't be difficult. It's very pronounced. That being said, it's going to be fascinating, but I do think it comes down to that question. And I'm being the pessimist and saying that she will be found not guilty, or at the very least, it'll be a hung jury, and she'll be essentially let off.
Sure.
So, unless there's just a bunch of based people on there that well, no, just because they didn't act on your intentions were in fact to circumvent immigration enforcement.
It'd be wild if it.
Oh gosh, it would be so wild. But I'm a pessimist, so we haven't had many wins recently, so I'm just gonna be bearish on that.
So with that, we got to cover 2 quick things before we head out from this one. WISN's Jay Weber announced recently that he's stepping away from his daily radio show after 38 years in broadcasting. He was definitely a guy I listened to every morning on my ride into Madison when I did it. And of course, during those political campaigns, I remember so many times, because I have a normal sleep schedule, even on campaigns. And I would get emails from Jay Weber at 4 a.m. I'd wake up to see him at 7 sometimes. And I always had to, set an alert on my phone to make sure if Jay Weber emails me about a political candidate that I'm working for, got to get to him right away, because he, was doing it super early. So fond memories of him. He's a great guy. And
4 a.m.
And that's when he's starting. It's not when he's waking up. That's when he's starting his.
That means he's waking up at 3:15.
Yeah,
3:30 to roll out of bed and get to the studio by 4.
Yeah, no, and even if you're doing prep before then. So Jay's, hopefully.
What time do you go to bed? 6 p.m.
I think so.
How do you even function as an adult like that?
I can't function with less than 8 hours of sleep, and I have to go to bed at 9 o'clock, and here we are later than that already. No, I commend him for being able to do his show from his time for as long as he could, and again, just being that conservative voice in the state of Wisconsin and southeastern Wisconsin. Heard he's going to the podcasting realm. So, if he is listening, he's welcome to come, shadow us
Yes.
for an episode or two. He can sit and see how we do this and get, because, obviously he's not going to have an incredible team working with him at iHeartRadio and WISN to make his podcast successful. No. So wishing him the best. But one last piece before we head out. The rumors and chatter around Giannis Antetokounmpo's status as a Milwaukee Buck seem to be picking up steam, and trade rumors abound. Sounds like Giannis has a bit more flexibility in the teams he would consider going to if the rumors are to be believed. It's not just the New York Knicks. He's got Luka Doncic out in Los Angeles trying to recruit him to the Western Conference and the West Coast. Shadow Gov. I know, as someone who loves hearing political commentators talk about sports, do you think he's going to be traded?
Well, I usually like to stay in my lane, and this is a lane that I don't enter in hardly at all. However, I'm not going to give some super political or super analytical take about basketball and why he shouldn't go. I just think Milwaukee, and I have to agree with Dan Schaefer, Milwaukee would be nothing with Giannis, and I think Milwaukee would be nothing without Giannis. And he has been Milwaukee for so long. For him to leave, I think would just crush the Bucks. Period.
Yes.
Even with the Bucks being not as good as they had in years prior, if Giannis leaves,
he's been the biggest blessing to the Milwaukee Bucks organization. I mean, I think he's probably the reason why we have the Pfizer Forum and the Bucks aren't in Portland or Las Vegas.
But even if we get a new stadium, but we can't fill it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole other thing.
No doubt.
And so he's been with us through that entire exchange. And if we were to go, if we never had Giannis, obviously the whole Pfizer Forum, that's a whole different situation, obviously. But I truly believe that if he were to leave, I just think we would be a listless vessel looking for direction. Not only would it be bad, but the fact that we have Giannis, everyone has hope. Like, we still have Giannis.
Yep. We always have hope.
We can always have a little bit of hope, and maybe that's me just coping. And that the Bucks are just going to have a number of skids this year and maybe even next year. But I think we're the strategy of going for the old veterans to try to get another championship for Giannis was a strategy, and it's just failed miserably.
Well, you can't really account for Damian Lillard's Achilles injury, and the fact is, Lillard was at an age where
he was already old,
that you're going to hit an age cliff. I don't know if there are many athletes in professional sports, at any sport, that really come back successfully from an Achilles injury. That being said, and I love the endearing stories about Giannis in Milwaukee, whether it's, winning the championship and then showing up to Bel Air Tacos and not getting a seat because no server comes up to him and he leaves, or, him walking to the arena or getting picked up by randos.
I like
giving him a lift.
Nugget, the 50 when he dropped the 50 burger.
Not 49, not 48, not 51, 50.
Yeah. And the drive-through.
Yeah.
And like, what is this, Giannis?
And he's going to Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Incredible.
It was great.
That being said, the Bucks should trade him. And, the fact is, like I said, he is 31. I think he'll be 32 by the end of the season. He plays a very physical style basketball that he is an NBA superstar that probably will avoid the age cliff that a lot of players hit, but he might not. And the Bucks need to get something for him so they can send him to LA, send him to New York, let him go for 4 or 5 years. He can come back at the end of his career, cap it off with another 3-4 year run in Milwaukee. But I am worried too, like you, if the Bucks do trade him, if the Bucks do trade him, you're going to have a bad Bucks team.
It's going to be really bad.
Yeah,
really bad.
Really bad.
Like if you trade him, just tank.
Yeah, but it's not just the Bucks that will be bad or that are bad right now. Like UW football, UW football is in bad shape. Marquette is having its probably worst season in 35 years. If the Brewers take a big step back after making playoffs in 7 of the last 8 seasons, you're talking about Milwaukee sports being where it was in the early 90s, where every team was terrible. Milwaukee was a city that like no one wanted to play for, no one wanted to come to. There was always talk about the teams being relocated. Like there's just a depressing Wisconsin and Milwaukee sports situation. Even the Packers weren't really on their upswing until 94, 95. Like you're talking about a time when sports were terrible in Wisconsin. You could see that again. Giannis has always been that bright point for the Bucks and for Milwaukee. I would hate to see him go, but maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to just embrace the suck that was the 90s Milwaukee sports team.
I think there's still Giannis still gives everyone hope. Clearly there are superstars out there that want Giannis because he still has stuff left in the tank. The supporting cast, and I'm not going to pretend to know. There are people out there that know, oh, so-and-so's got this deal with this amount of money and we can't trade him because of X, Y, and Z. But there was nothing before Giannis. You would have to rebuild the entire image, brand, because the brand is focused around Giannis completely. I mean, you could say Bobby Portis.
He's out. He's going to be gone soon.
He's going to be gone soon too. That's my point. Like,
there's no face. Derry Bird, AJ Green. You're right. He's not the Giannis that you're going to build a team around for a generation.
And Lillard's, got 1 foot out the door.
Oh, he's gone. But they cut him because he's not going to play this year, and that Achilles injury is so bad. But they had to eat like a huge chunk of that contract, and that's
So my point being though is, we're what is the fallacy? The sunk cost fallacy, where I think the sunk cost fallacy is true at this point. Like we already have the money, we're already going to pay him. Like, why not continue to do so?
Sure.
He keeps kind of the Bucks hegemony, it's still kind of coherent. Where if he's gone, we're tanking. Wisconsin sports outside the Packers right now. I guess the Brewers, but feels like it was a disappointment.
It
overall.
Does, but if you consider where that team was between, the end of the Yount and Molitor era through like the most recent stretch, like we were bad. The Brewers were bad for a long time. You ask a lot of boomers, they probably still think the Brewers suck. You ask a lot of boomers, they probably still think the Bucks suck. Like it's just the reality that we grew up in, or at least I grew up in as a Milwaukee sports fan. Like the teams are bad. You just accept it. Now they're good, but how much longer are we going to have that? And those windows are closing. So with that, folks, if you think Giannis is going to be traded, let us know in the comments. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, drop us that 5-star review. And with that, we're out.